The reason they like reading my stuff is that I've always got real life examples to prove what I'm saying.
There's a lot of good people that listen to this podcast.
Other than God and my family, deer hunting would be next in line on my list of priorities.
From the bottom of our hearts, it's just fantastic and awesome to have the support that you guys are getting.
People ask me about expandable broadheads and love swings.
Chasing Giants with Don Higgins and Terry Peer. Brought to you by Osseo Camo, nature's most lethal camouflage. Follow along as Don and Terry discuss the techniques, strategies, and dedication needed to harvest one of God's most amazing creations, world-class whitetails.
Osseo Gear introduces a premium line of bow hunting gear that is unmatched, pairing nature's finest camouflage with the best technological innovations. Osseo Gear brings whitetail bow hunters the gear they need to be the best at their craft. The unique camouflage mimics the intricate feather pattern of North America's greatest predatory creatures. Designed for invisibility, built for comfort, and engineered for function. Visit OsseoGear.com. That's ASIO Gear.com to start shopping. Osseo Gear, prepare to be invisible.
Well, welcome everyone to Chasing Giants podcast, brought to you by Osseo Gear with Don Higgins. I'm Terry Peer. Welcome to episode 102. We're actually, Don, we're recording this on Friday night, which is kind of odd for us, isn't it?
Yeah, usually we do it on Sundays, Sunday evenings, but I've got some schedule conflicts. I'm in Ohio right now, and you are headed to West Virginia. Is it West Virginia or Virginia?
Yeah, West Virginia. Yeah. So, we appreciate how much positive feedback we're getting with the video version of this on YouTube. We hope we're staying loyal to the core of our audience that's listening on podcast platforms or on MTech, but adding the video to these episodes, I think we've picked up a lot of viewers from it, and I think people enjoy it, but the difficult part is the editing time is a little bit longer than what we're used to. So we've been either recording early on Sunday or even on Saturday night, but it's just not going to be an option this week with our schedule. So we're recording Friday night, the 28th, even though everyone's going to see this on Sunday, the 30th. So a little bit odd for us. We got a couple days that normally we'd talk about on the podcast, but we're cut short because we're recording early. So what are you doing in Ohio? How many properties are you going to be working on this week?
Well, I looked at the first one here today. I'm going to look at 7 properties while I'm here, and then I'm going to have to actually make a second trip to Ohio later. But yeah, up north, along Lake Erie, they got a bunch of snow, and they're looking at one of the landowners up there. The client said that they've got 18 inches to 2 feet of snow. And he actually sent me a trail camera picture that he got on his cell camera of a deer that was standing in the snow, and the snow was up to the deer's belly.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not stomping around and that kind of stuff. I'm not putting snowshoes on, and plus you can't see anyway. So,
well, what you want to see with habitat and trails and different things, you're not going to be able to see with that much snow on the ground anyway. A little bit of snow where you can see tracks isn't a bad thing.
Right.
I was actually in Cuyahoga Falls, just between Cleveland and Akron earlier this week, and they got quite a bit of snow from that lake effect while I was even up there. So I want to pick your brain a little bit. You had a couple really good stories from this past week while you were out in, I believe this was Missouri, wasn't it?
That photo was actually from Kansas.
Yep. So you made a post on social media about these huge rock fences, and you're a tall fella, and it looks like the guy that's standing beside you, he's got to be, good grief, 6'5", 6'6", and this is up over both of your shoulders. That's a lot of rocks.
Yeah, there's rock walls or rock fences are pretty common out there, but usually they're about knee high, waist at the most. But this client, his great grandfather stacked these rocks way back in the day to make a cattle corral. So they would get these cattle in this corral that was made of these rocks, and just back in that day they used what they had available, and those rocks were plentiful available in that area, and they made a cattle corral out of them. I just thought that was neat as could be.
Well, we have a lot of the rock and stone fences here in Kentucky in horse country where they would pick them out of the horse farm pastures. But I've never seen, I don't know how long the fence is. You don't get a perspective of how much of it. But both of you two are tall guys, and for this thing to be up over both of your shoulders, that's a lot of rock.
I guess they didn't want the cows to jump it when they got crowded, so they stacked her high.
And then when we talk a little bit about big things that you saw, this monster tree. I don't know that I've ever even seen a tree this big before.
It's the biggest one I've seen. I mean, I've never been to the redwood forest in California or the sequoias, but I'm telling you, they said it was. And you know, the crazy thing was the day before I was on another property, and the guy says, "I'll show you the biggest cottonwood tree you've ever seen in your life. It measures 21 feet 7 inches around," or something like that. And it was huge. And then the very next client says, "I want to show you the biggest cottonwood tree you ever seen in your life. It measures 35 feet and something around." And here it is. And I'm telling you what, that was a absolute giant tree.
So when you were out on these properties, did you just see anything that just looked like unbelievable deer habitat? What kind of terrain were you out in?
Well, basically, I was in all kinds of different terrain. I spent 3 days in northern Missouri and then 3 days in Kansas. And, you know, there was one farm that I was on. We're going to talk about that with one of the questions tonight. But the one farm I was on was so open, I didn't even get out of the truck. The guy just drove me around. And I mean, there was these little wooded draws down in the ravines and along the creeks and such, but you could see right through them. And we just covered all the edges and such in his truck. And that's how open it was. You know, other areas were more wooded. Some of them were fairly flat. Some of them were really hilly. So just a lot of diversity this week. And then I went home for one day and headed east to Ohio. So
Well,
I put a few miles on that Chevy this week.
I guarantee you there is no property in eastern Ohio that you're going to be able to see everything from the truck driving around. You're in big wood timber area there, aren't you?
Yeah, and it's almost mountainous where I was at today, especially giant hills.
Yeah. Well, I want to save some time in this podcast. We told everybody last week that we had a very big announcement that we were going to make this episode, and It would be really easy for us to kind of make everybody wait, but I think everybody likes to listen to the listener submitted questions anyway, so I don't want to play any tricks on anybody. But Don and I are going to pause here for a second. I'm going to play a clip that has two of our good friends on it. That's Chris Yates from Victory Chevrolet and Brian Kraft from Midwest Land Group, and they're going to help us make an announcement about what's going on this year. All right, everybody. I've been looking forward to this segment of the podcast for quite a few months now. We've alluded to the fact that we have big news coming, and I can't be more proud to look back on the last year of Lester's Feet and not only think about how many people contributed, but how many people believed in what we were doing. And there's a group of guys that's on the screen or that you're going to be listening to here in just a second that have probably been the biggest supporters for Don and I kicking this thing off, and that's Chris Yates from Victory Chevrolet and Brian Kraft from Midwest Land Group. So we're pleased to announce tonight that the 2022 raffle is a go. As we talked about in the last couple episodes, Lester's Feet, by the miracle of God, navigated the federal government and the IRS to get our nonprofit in a record-setting 4 weeks. So we are fully approved, but we still have some steps to kind of go through in order to host this raffle. And it means a lot that we had to come up with a partner to kind of host the raffle with us, and Don's home church in Illinois is going to be the ones to step up for that. So Don, I think it's only appropriate we start this conversation with you talking about your home church and them helping us out in this a little bit.
Yeah, Terry, my home church is Solid Rock Chapel in Sullivan, Illinois. And I know that the listeners of Chasing Giants probably remember that on multiple occasions, I've invited the listeners to be my guest at the church. And, if you tell me you're coming, I'll meet you at the door on Sunday morning and even take you out for lunch afterwards. And, it's just been a God thing, Terry, this whole Lester's Feet deal from the get go. And um, just, me meeting guys like Brian and Chris, and they just jumped in and were huge supporters from the get go. But that church, my home church, is also playing a big pivotal role this year, and I couldn't be more proud of them. There wasn't big long discussions. We went to them with the idea, and it's okay, let's do it. And that's the way they operate. If God's opening doors, they knock them down and go through.
Yeah, I can't emphasize enough that every time that we see a challenge with what we've tried to do with Lester's Feet, God's opened up a door to facilitate and navigate it, and that comes from dealing with the IRS to the our friend and listener in New York that's listening right now that hooked us up with a nonprofit attorney in Kentucky to help us navigate all this stuff. It always seems like no matter what Satan tries to do as a hurdle or a roadblock, God just automatically steers and puts people in our lives and organizations. So two of those organizations from the very beginning are with us in this segment of the podcast, and that's Brian Kraft from Midwest Land Group. And we've all heard about Chris Yates from Victory Chevrolet. We talk about he's got the best deal on diesel trucks in the country, oftentimes on the podcast. But I'm going to start with Brian. Brian, you and I sat in Don's shed after a master class one time. Just basically, you were talking about your background and how you started your business and kind of navigated your way through life. And I know you don't want this known, but the next morning when we started the master class, you came in and just handed me a check and said, "Take care of a family with this." And that was the first big donation that this organization ever really had, and that money went straight to families. So as a courtesy to you, just tell us just a little bit about Midwest Land Group, who you are. I think I owe it to you as a friend and someone I respect in business to just give you the opportunity to introduce your organization to everybody listening.
Oh, well, thank you so much, man. We appreciate the opportunity to be on here and chat with you guys tonight. And we really appreciate the opportunity that you've given us to be able to give and be able to help other people. Because without that, it wouldn't be the same here. We would be looking for other ways to be able to help. And, for me personally, when we were in the garage or in the shop there talking about it that night, man, I knew what I was supposed to do. And I told you then I was all in. Anything that we could do to help, we were there to help. But Midwest Land Group's we're a land company. We're a great group of guys. There's almost right at 100 of us strong right now as far as agents. And we all have the same belief system. And it wasn't just me that contributed last year. It was every one of my agents at the company. And we wanted to do more this year if we could. And thank goodness we met good old Chris and we came up with an idea, and I'll let him tell what the idea is. But yeah, man, we're thankful to be able to help out in any way we can. We wish we could do more. Wish there was more opportunities for everybody there.
Well, I think one of the key things that Don and I have heard from you is I think the general public, number one, has a hard time donating because they're scared that people are going to take advantage of them or going to take advantage of the situation. And you gave me some really good advice that first night that we talked and helped kind of set the groundwork or the foundation of Lester's Feet. And I think one of the things I've learned from you over the years is that key phrase is you can't be afraid of somebody that's going to abuse the situation from doing the right thing. And, even though we've set up Lester's Feet to pay bills directly, I can sleep at night knowing that our heart is in the right place to take donor money and make sure that people put it in the right place. If parents decide to spend the other money somewhere else, that's their business. But we're not going to let the fear of Satan keep us from doing the right thing, and that's taking care of these families. So I honest, in front of everybody watching or listening to this, I can't tell you how much your kind of advice and just a candid conversation really set the tone for the foundation of what Lester's Feed is today. So I truly appreciate that.
Man, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I'm glad that I could say some encouraging words every once in a while.
Yeah, you pulled that one out. That doesn't happen very often. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's just when it happens, it's good.
Well, I'm going to switch over and talk to Chris Yates here for a minute. And the name Chris Yates should not be new to anybody on the podcast. You've been a partner of this podcast, but what people don't know is silently you've been supporting Lester's Feet in multiple ways from the beginning. And I've never seen a man that is hard as big as what yours is. Obviously, you're a businessman in the Kansas City area that started with very humbly beginnings in the automotive industry and have grown your dealerships to, I believe you'll have to clarify it in just a second, I believe 4 stores now. But I think back to a family that I called you that their daughter had cancer in the Kansas City area. And I got a hold of a principal from this little girl's school. And he said, Terry, this car that has to drive into Kansas City to get this kid treatment, man, it's on 4 donut spare tires. I don't know where they got them to put it on, but this car needs work bad. And I called Chris Yates, and he doesn't even want this story known, by the way. He'll get on me after this recording that I even told this, but you know, Lester's Feet, we needed basically a service organization or service shop to work on this vehicle. So I called Chris and I said, hey man, I need you to go over this car, make sure it's safe for this mom to drive this kid back and forth an hour for chemo treatments. And this car was in pretty bad shape. I think the whole wiring harness was gutted out of it.
It was pretty rough.
And, you know, we had already voted as a board to cover the cost on whatever it took to pay for it. And Chris fixed it, and we never got a bill. He ate that internally with his car dealerships and his service organization. But just like Brian, the giving heart that you have not only for Lester's Feet, but your soup kitchen ministries and everything else that you do in the Kansas City area is second to none. And I can't think of a better person that I would like to recommend people to do their car dealing with than you at Victory Chevrolet. So just introduce Victory Chevrolet for us real quick.
So Victory Chevrolet, we have 3 dealerships, one in Smithville, Missouri, one in Savannah, Missouri, and one in Paola, Kansas. The one in Paola, Kansas is a Chevy Buick GMC. The other 2 are Chevy. So Chevy in Savannah and Smithville.
So for the people who are new to the podcast, Chris has the deal of the century if you're looking for a diesel truck. He has a special program where you buy a truck from him and then he buys it back and trades you every year for about $5,000, depending on the mileage that you want in the package. So if you're looking for the best deal on a diesel truck, how many states have we helped you sell vehicles in there, Chris?
I mean, sometimes I believe it's all 50. I mean, it's a lot. We've had them from Pennsylvania to Ohio, a lot from Illinois, Utah, Washington State. I mean, everywhere. You don't realize how many people actually do listen to podcasts. I mean, it's every time I get a voice message or a text message, they always say, yeah, Chris, I heard about you on Don Higgins, or I know Don or Terry, or so it's quite a bit. I remember the first night we was on the podcast, the next morning I was like, wow, I'm going to have to turn my phone off today. But it's been very good, very good.
Now you know what it's like to carry as many a phone with as many numbers saved in it as Don Higgins. His phone rings off the hook like that every day.
That's true.
Well, with respect to your all's time, you know, we're talking about that the raffle is a go for 2022. You guys sat down and had an idea that you pitched to us several months ago. We've been keeping it under wraps. I'm just going to let you all lead with it and tell us what the grand prize of the 2022 Lester's Feet raffle is going to be.
Tell them what it is, Chris.
So the grand prize for this year's raffle is going to be a 2022 1500 half-ton Silverado Trail Boss, 4-wheel drive.
Just absolutely amazing. I remember the day that you texted me and said, I need you and Don on a phone call this afternoon. I think it was the last week of October, because I had an open house at work. And I thought, oh no, something's going on. What's wrong? And he goes, nope, I just had breakfast or lunch or something with Brian Kraft, and we want to do something. And you broke the news to us that you wanted to do it. Now, since then, we've been trying to navigate Lester's Feet, nonprofit status, and how we're going to do this with attorneys and everything. And we'll be releasing that information very soon. But the fact that Midwest Land Group, which is a group of real estate agents in, help me out here, Kansas,
9 states,
Oklahoma.
Yeah.
What's that?
All 9 states across the Midwest.
9 states, a group of real estate agents and a group of car dealerships have come together and believed in this thing big enough that we're going to raise a lot of money for a lot of families. And the grand prize is going to be a brand new truck. And, a lot of times when these big ticket items get donated, they'll say, okay, well, the truck's going to cost $50,000 and you all get whatever's above that. You two and your organizations are donating this free and clear. So there's no fixed cost in this. Your two organizations are ponying up and believing in helping families and spreading the word of Christ this much. And I don't know if Don has any words to say here or not, but I'm honored to call you both friends, mentors, and inspirations in using whatever you have that God gave you to do something better.
Well, Terry, as I sit here and watch you guys here on my computer screen, what really strikes me is not only the giving heart of these two guys, but I think back to the dealings I've had with both of them, and we've never had signed agreements or anything. It's always been word. We're men of our word, but and a handshake. And Victory Chevrolet sponsoring the podcast, there's no contract drawn up and signed, no list of deliverables that we expect out of each other. It's just Chris and I, we talked in the Ioway at the Iowa Deer Classic. We come to an agreement in about 30 seconds. We shook hands and walked away. And that's the quality of these guys. It goes beyond their giving heart. It's just the kind of people they are. And I can't tell you how proud I am that to be associated with them and to have them a major part of Lester's Feet. It's just huge.
Well, we thank you guys a lot again for giving us the opportunity. Like I said, we really wanted to do more than just give a donation. We thought that by giving the truck away, it would actually raise more awareness than any just straight cash donation that we could do. But you are correct. We'll take care of all the expenses of the vehicle. Whoever wins this, it won't cost you a penny. And like I said, we couldn't be more happy, more proud to be able to be a part of this, because for us, it's just really special. Like you said, Terry, it's, a lot of times you give and you just don't know exactly what your money's going to. But man, I knew from day one where my money was going, because I knew who I was dealing with. Not just mine, it's God's money. Always has been, always will be. I'm just here to do what I'm supposed to do with it. And that's kind of what I told you to begin with is, man, I just do what I'm supposed to do and I let God take care of the rest. And when Chris and I had lunch, he said, do you want to do this? You need to call anybody? I said, I don't need to call anybody, man. I already know the answer to all these questions. It's a yes, we're in, let's do this. And I was really glad to be able to be a part of it. And I'm glad we got it worked out. I really am.
Yeah, it was, we had to navigate some tightropes there for the last couple months. But again, it's a matter of God just opening doors. So, there's really on Chasing Giants is basically just a platform that we're able to share the news. Lester's Feet is the actual ministry, but there's 3 organizations that are really coming together to make this work. And that is Midwest Land Group, what Brian Kraft and his agents represent, It's Chris Yates at Victory Chevrolet and his 4 dealerships in the Kansas City area, and it's Don's home church that are really coming together and seeing the vision in this. And I'm just humbled to be a very small part of this thing that I know my grandfather would be really proud of. 4, really, really good guys that love deer hunting. And really that's what brought us together, was the love of deer hunting, to find a way to make a difference in somebody else's life. And I think my grandfather would be proud of that.
Absolutely, he would.
No doubt about it, Terry.
That's right. It's funny how God works. It was Chris and I actually met in a driveway up in northern Missouri. He was from Mississippi and I was from Mississippi. The guy that actually introduced us had to kind of stand aside because we wouldn't quit talking to each other. And Chris called me one day after Don had looked at my farm, just to tell you how God works and all this. Chris called me one day and he's like, "Hey man, I know you had Don out to one of your farms," and he said, "I really want to have him out. You think I should do it?" And I said, "Man, if you don't learn anything about deer hunting, you're going to meet somebody that you really need to be meeting. That's all I can tell you. So whatever you got to do, you get him on that farm." And I don't think it was about deer hunting. This is what it was all about right here. So I'm just glad to be a part of it.
Absolutely. That's exactly how it happened. It's just, it's crazy how things like that happen. I mean, it's just God doing his work. I mean, I was about to say the funny thing was I tell the same story that Brian just told, because that's how I met Don, from calling Brian.
Well, like I said, I don't want to drag this out, but the good news is the raffle's on. We're going to have a bunch of prizes. All of the other sponsors that support Don and myself and other companies affiliated with the outdoor community are going to be stepping up. But the news for tonight is the raffle is on. Midwest Land Group, Victory Chevrolet, and Don's Home Church are going to make it happen. And the grand prize is going to be a 2022 Trail Boss Silverado 4-wheel drive truck. And that's going to be awesome. And I can't wait to keep sharing more details as the auction opens up. We'll be sharing more of that as we go. All right, Don. So what do you think about giving away a free truck?
Well, I said that a free hunt on my farm would be the booby prize this year. I'm just, you know what? I've got to know both Chris and Brian over the last 3 years. Actually, Brian longer than that. I've done consulting work on numerous properties for Brian, and I've also been to Chris's property. That's how we met. And I've heard both of these guys' life stories. And I'm not going to share any personal information here, but I want to tell you something about these guys. They didn't start out with a silver spoon. They didn't start out wealthy. These guys both came from very humble beginnings and today are extremely successful. And yet they never forgot where they came from, and they're sharing their blessings with others. That's exactly what it is. They've been extremely blessed, and they're sharing it with others. And I'll tell you what, I'm so proud to be associated with them guys. It's just unreal, the quality of the people that I get to meet on my consulting visits, and just day after day after day, it's just like one good person after another. And Brian and Chris just happen to be 2 of those.
So, we had 4 guys on the last, we recorded that on Thursday night. We had some bandwidth problems, but the audio came through fine. I think there's some freezing pictures with the 4 of us in there that kind of moved around. So we apologize about that, but extremely excited about what we have to kind of present as everybody. We'll give you the details of the raffle. We're finishing up the final pieces of it. All of the people that's been calling for the last year wanting to donate to this coming year's raffle, we're finally ready for you. So if you have something you want to donate and put in the raffle from your business, I know all of our sponsors from the podcast are chipping in. We'll be announcing that. So if you're listening to this and you want to participate, your good friend Joe built a shed antler chandelier that's been sitting in my office floor here since early deer season. We've got already Cedar Ridge Tactical donated a spotting scope. So we've already got some stuff. So if you're wanting to donate, now the raffle is a go. We're going to do it. Make sure you get with Don or I. Actually, just go ahead and send me a message. Don's just going to forward it to me anyway, and we'll make sure we gather all this stuff up and get everybody the details. You got something else on that?
Well, we probably should say, Terry, that we're not taking any hunts.
Oh, good point.
Because of liability issues. So we're sorry, but we just can't take hunts for liability issues. But if you've got product, you're a company, whatever, we're definitely interested. We want to help as many families as we can, and the bigger we can make this, the better. And we just appreciate everyone's support.
Yeah, we had some people reach out last year, and we said we're just going to navigate this on stuff that Don and I can control. And then after talking with our attorney for the liability of the foundation and personal property associated with it, it's just we're going to stay away from donated hunts. I do have the ability, we did navigate that if somebody wants to donate a firearm, a lot of the Ducks Unlimited banquets or Wild Turkey Federation, there's shotguns and different things. We do have a way to navigate that with FFLs. So if that's something that you want to donate or you have a means to do it for the raffle, we can facilitate that, but we're going to stay away from the hunts. So appreciate everybody's support. We're really excited about it. You just said something that triggered another thought that I was going to bring up later, and I'm going to share my screen now. And I don't know if you saw this or not, but I don't watch the NFL anymore. And it's not really because I'm still boycotting them, because I quit watching it because they all started taking a knee, and I just had a problem with that. But the thing is I filled that time that I watch sports with other things, and I just haven't gone back to doing it. I stay busy without investing, 2 to 4 hours watching sports on the weekends. So, we harp on people pretty hard when it comes to this kind of stuff, but you just said people using their blessings, and everybody's talked about this football game that happened last week. And, the Bills quarterback with 13 seconds drove down the field and scored a touchdown to tie the game and put it into overtime. And because of the stupid rules in the NFL, both teams don't get a shot to score. So Kansas City won the toss and was able to score first, so they won. So we saw Chris Yates up in the top of the stadium going nuts with everybody. He posted those pictures. But this is what I think is special. The Kansas City Chiefs posted something about honoring the job that the opposing team or the opposing quarterback did, and called for all the fans to donate $13 to that quarterback's charity in honor of this miraculous drive that he did in 13 seconds. In just a couple days, they raised $178,000. So even though we harp on people all the time about, taking a knee or doing whatever, I think in this case, just an awesome way to use. This is what public platforms should be about, not taking a knee, but helping others like this. And I just felt need to share that. I thought that was a really cool story that the Kansas City Chiefs actually honored the job that a competitor did in that game, and then helped them raise money for their charity. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, Terry, I've had the privilege of working with some professional athletes doing consulting on their properties, and I've hammered the NFL, NBA as much as anybody, and my complaint is not the players, it's the institution. The NFL, for example, has made a bunch of decisions that were just asinine, in my opinion. And that doesn't mean the players agree with it. We can't, our government makes all kinds of stupid decisions. That doesn't mean the citizens agree with it. And it's the same way with these professional sports, various leagues. Lots of good players, good people that are using their blessings to help others. And that was a perfect example. I'm glad you shared that.
That's what it's about. So I want to talk real quick about an issue or a common question. It's really not really an issue. I shouldn't have used that word. But when we're we're in the period of time where we're taking orders for Miscanthus. Miscanthus is a screening product that Real World offers. It's a non-invasive screening, but this is not a seed. This is a live rhizome, very similar to a tree seedling or a root. And we're getting a lot of questions right now about people wanting to ship their seed in the same box as the Miscanthus to save on shipping costs. And it's a great question because shipping is just crazy right now. And it's worth asking the question about combining different things into one shipment. But I want to take a minute and explain why we don't combine seed products with the Miscanthus. Do you want to hit on that real quick?
Right. Well, for one thing, the Miscanthus it's very sensitive to, the weather conditions. It needs to be refrigerated. When we ship that Miscanthus, it's in a bag. We put a moisture retention gel in with that Miscanthus. So there's a lot of moisture, and it comes out of a cooler. We keep it refrigerated until we ship it. So a lot of times that bag will sweat, and you got just way too much moisture in that box to be taking a chance by throwing seed in there as well. So even if we were to ship it at the same time, it would be in separate boxes. So it's just not going to work to put the Miscanthus and the seed in the same box.
So we want you to contact us if there's an opportunity for you to combine shipments on, let's say, a bag of harvest salad and a jug of plot topper. No problem, we can do that, or mineral and seed. But when we're talking about giant Miscanthus, really the only time we're mixing that shipment with somebody is if they're receiving a bulk shipment of seed, and we throw the Miscanthus in on top of it and shrink wrap it, and they're picking it up, or we're dropping it off immediately. But to put these living roots that are holding a lot of moisture in a box with seed product, it's just not a good idea. So for everybody that's been asking about that, that's just the reason why I just want to take an opportunity. I want to shift to our, we have a big announcement from QuietKat. QuietKat's been struggling with supply chain. Just like everybody else, a lot of their bikes have been on back order, and they contacted us and wanted us to make an announcement for them that bikes are back in stock. You can actually search on their website which ones are in stock, but they're actually putting a special promotion. So you want to talk about that a little bit, Don?
Yeah, I mean, it's really good news for basically all the listeners of this podcast. I've been personally using QuietKat products for the last 4 years, and those bikes have been a real game changer. I mean, especially the older I get, I don't like walking 3/4 of a mile across an open field, and I can jump on that electric bike and I can be across there in a fraction of the time and not leave any ground scent or make any more noise, probably less noise than if I was walking. They've just been a great partner. They were founded back in 2012 by a couple of hunters that were basically just looking for the best electric bike they could get for their own use. And they knocked it out of the park with this QuietKat bike. But as an exclusive promotion for the Chasing Giants listeners, they're going to send, if you buy a QuietKat bike, they're going to give you a free trailer that's pulled behind these bikes. And you and I both have one of those trailers, Terry. They retail for $389, so almost a $400 product that they're going to give you. So if you want to order the bike, we don't sell them. I don't sell them. You got to buy them direct from QuietKat. I don't know if they probably have a dealer network too, but to get this special offer, you need to contact QuietKat directly, and the coupon code is simply Higgins, Higgins. You can use that on their website or as you correspond with them, whether by phone or whatever, to buy your QuietKat. And the other thing I want to throw out, Terry, is these bikes come with a 30-day risk-free trial. So you buy your QuietKat and you don't like it, you got 30 days to contact them and they'll take care of it. I guess I'd take it back even. So,
yep.
No risk.
Yep. So I want to talk a little bit about it. When you get onto the QuietKat website, there's actually 2 models of a trailer, or wagon, I guess is what they call them. There's a 2-tire and then a single tire. this coupon applies for either one, so you can choose which one you want based on your preference. We both have the 2-tire, and I'll be the first to say I have not put a deer on this and drug a deer out in it. But what I've used this the most for is in the spring, the wagon that is, in the spring when it's really muddy, wet conditions. I have a Kubota 1140X side by side, so it's heavy. It's almost as heavy as a subcompact tractor. It still ruts the field out. So when the conditions are really wet, I'll take my QuietKat with this wagon to take back and refresh my mineral sites on the farm. And, you know, you can throw multiple bags of mineral on this thing and just scoot across the field at 15 mile an hour in the mud and not track up or rut anything. So I've taken tree stands in and out with them. So they're really cool accessory for those of you who have QuietKats. And I might offend some of our Amish people, because I might be misinformed a little bit, but I know some Amish communities don't allow electric bikes, some do. If I was an Amish person taking an electric bike, this would be like the ultimate accessory for because you could put something on that and tow it around town and go, you know, to the store or go to work or wherever. We even saw 2 years ago at ATA show, somebody had Kiski and on the little trailer pulling him around. Now he's a little feller, he's not big like me, but they had Don Kiski on this thing getting pulled around the whole ATA show. So it's just a cool little promotion that they're giving us. We wanted to share with everybody.
Yeah, a couple of quick comments there, Terry. QuietKat does make a solar charger, so for those Amish folks that may be interested, if that's allowed in your community, there is a solar charger for those batteries. And you know, one of my favorite uses for the QuietKat is coming up. I like to use it for shed antler hunting, because you can cover a lot of field edges in a hurry. Yep. Get on that thing and just skim those field edges. You see a grass waterway going out into the field, you just work around it. And the new, I'm going to buy one of those new baskets, or whatever you call them, the racks on the back behind the seat.
You got one coming.
That would be fantastic for carrying the shed antlers.
Yep, you got one coming. I ordered them this week. That basket, the mounting bracket on it is a little bit different than our generation bikes. Our bikes are a couple years older, so the rear rack, it has a different bolt hole pattern. So I need to make a little adapter out of a piece of steel. But we both have those coming, and we'll have them before shed antler season. But
awesome, thank you.
But visit QuietKat if you have questions. We can put you in touch with their product specialist to help you choose what bike. But I'm telling you to keep in. We talk about intrusion all the time on this podcast, and this isn't just a sponsor plug. This is about finding ways that you can navigate and do stuff on your property without leaving intrusion. And this is one of the products that you talk about with your consulting clients every visit to consider for checking trail cameras, putting feed, mineral out, just navigating around the farm. It's quiet and no sense. So it's a great tool that we've relied on.
I'll tell you what, when I first seen these electric bikes, I thought this is the stupidest idea I've ever seen in my life for a hunter. But after getting one, I'm telling you what, I'm impressed. And another way that I like to use them is in the summertime when I'm trying to film velvet bucks. If you find a soybean field that's planted on 30-inch rows, you can drive these QuietKat bikes right down the soybean rows and not hurt the plants at all. And I've had soybeans so tall they're rubbing my hands on the handlebars, and you can't even tell I drove through that field. I'm going right down the road, not running over the beans at all. So that's another good use I found for them.
I remember the original idea you had about using electric bikes. It was because one of the areas you hunt on your farm where you would leave your four-wheeler, if the deer looked out and saw that four-wheeler, and it could have been 600 yards away in open ag, but if they saw that blob, they knew something was up.
Yep.
And they got skittish. And the reason you first started looking at electric bikes was to ride it out there and just lay it down, and you could drive it a whole lot closer to where you were hunting and lay it down in the tall weeds and not even have to walk in. So It's really has been a game changer. I thought that the wagon would be a little gimmicky, but I'm telling you, in the spring, to carry mineral and different products to tree stands back and forth and do different tasks on the farm, especially when it's wet, has been a game changer for me. So that getting is a kind of a free bonus on a purchase right now. Pretty cool. I do have an announcement that I am picking up our shirts tomorrow. So I'm gonna have this is Friday night. Saturday, I'm gonna have some of our shirts in West Virginia. We'll have them in Shipshewana, but we'll be shipping those out pretty soon. We're gonna have to up the order because we've already sold, I think, most of our pre-orders. So we'll be getting those out soon. Since everybody's gonna hear this Sunday, while we're kind of navigating announcements, these are your speaking schedules, starting with February 5th at Extreme Custom Plots. There's a ticket for that one. The Shipshewana show that's going to include the Great Debate. That's February 17th and 19th. And then the Dixie Deer Classic we've talked about. You've added one onto here, Don, and that's the Illinois Deer Classic.
Yeah, this is the first year for the Illinois Deer Classic. It's going to be hosted by the same people that host the Iowa Deer Classic, and I consider the Iowa Deer Classic to be the best deer show I've ever been to. I mean, it's just the best facility, it's the best run, it's the best food, and those folks are coming to Illinois to try to revive a deer show in Illinois. So be sure to support them. It'll be held in Peoria, and I'm blessed to have been asked to speak there. So look forward to seeing you.
I can vouch for the people that run the Iowa Deer Classic. They put on a top-notch show, and I'm excited for there to be another good hunting show back in Illinois. If you remember, I believe it was 16, 17 years ago. That's where we met. You had your tree business booth, and we stopped and talked to you after you had shot your big buck. So your first 200-inch. So. Yep. Good for the people of Illinois, and hopefully that'll be a successful show if everybody goes out and supports that. That's all the announcements I got. If you don't have anything else, let's transition to the Lester's Feet Family of the Week, presented by Matthews. This is a little girl named Magnolia who was born with a muscular skeletal condition that I'm pretty familiar with this condition. One of the children in my home church has this. And there's a specialist in West Palm Beach, Florida. I believe it's West Palm Beach. But if that doctor can get the baby down there at a very early age, the bones have not, basically they're really limber. And through a lot of therapy, aggressive therapy for about 4 to 6 months, they can basically eliminate a lot of the surgeries that the baby will have to have later in life. So Magnolia is still going to have a surgery or two, but the unbelievable progress. So we're going to play this video and let everybody take a look at it. Lester's Feet was able to help this family. The cool part is we not only helped them financially be able to move and relocate to Florida for months, but we made an announcement on this podcast. They had a chocolate lab that they needed somebody to take care of, and a guy stepped up that listens to the podcast and helped them. We didn't even know it. He's a vendor of ours. That's who you ordered the Chasing Giants decals from. We had no idea until afterwards.
He also, my book, Real World Whitetail Icons, they designed the cover and basically the whole book. They designed it. Laid it out.
Small world. So, but anyway, check out this story of Magnolia and her family. But thanks to Matthews for bringing this segment to us.
Hi guys, this is Magnolia. My name's Jessica, I'm Magnolia's mom, and this is Larry, Magnolia's dad. Magnolia was born with arthrogryposis multiplex congenita, also known as AMC. It's a disorder that affects the joints in her body as well as the muscles in her body. When Magnolia was born, she wasn't able to move her arms or her legs, and her hips were also dislocated. Before Magnolia was born, we found a doctor in West Palm Beach, Florida, that we decided we would put in charge of all Noli's treatment. So after Noli was born, we went to West Palm Beach and she began intense physical and occupational therapy. And since then, we've seen a lot of improvements. We went there for about 4 months, and when we came back home, we've continued therapy. In September, we plan to go back, and she's going to have her first major surgery that is going to give her hip sockets, because right now she doesn't have any, and her hips are anteriorly rotated, which doesn't allow her to bear weight or walk. So the hopes are that after this surgery, she will be able to bear weight and hopefully one day walk and be able to live independently.
We just want to thank everybody that donates LESTER'S feet. They made it possible for us to be in Florida with Magnolia while she got treatment. They also helped us find a home for Buckley, our dog, while we were gone. Thank you guys for everything.
All right. Well, even though we're recording this on Friday night, I got a pretty cool story for you, Don.
All right, I'm ready.
All right. So tomorrow's a very interesting day, meaning Saturday. The people watching this, it's actually yesterday, if that makes sense. But in November, I was contacted by a gentleman to ask me to speak at this event in Huntington, West Virginia. I don't know the guy, don't know the event, first year of it. And to be honest with you, I've always considered, I referred to myself the other day as the B team. You know, everybody wants to come see Don. I don't care about being in the public spotlight at all, but I don't know. For some reason, I just said, yeah, I'll come down and help you. It's about a 2.5 hour drive. He was trying to promote, just the good nature of the sport, trying to do something positive in his community. And so I said, okay. Didn't really think anything about it. So tonight's Friday. Tomorrow we have to be down there for the event. Thursday, we get a message on the LESTER'S Feet Facebook page about a family that unfortunately their 17-year-old daughter's been diagnosed and been fighting breast cancer. And she's been battling that, and they know nothing about the podcast. Somebody basically tagged or commented that was a friend of hers, so she saw our Facebook post that I think had one of the past videos on it. So she just reached out and said, we're really struggling. I don't know how this works. Is anybody available to talk? So I replied back, said, yeah, that's what we're here for. Great. And so I said, where are you located at? Guess where they're located at?
Right where you're going to speak.
Huntington, West Virginia. So I was talking to Austin Razor today, and he said we can't continue to be surprised at all of these doors that God opens for us. So
right.
Before the event tomorrow, they're not any way affiliated with the event. They're going to swing by, and the board is going to talk to this family tomorrow and pray with them and figure out how we can help them. So just another opportunity where, just like the announcement with the truck and LESTER'S Feet, you got a bunch of guys and gals that are being brought together with deer hunting and are finding ways to make a difference in other people's lives. So just really cool how things work out.
No doubt God's got his hand in it.
All right, well, let's do one listener submitted question, and then we'll take a break and do the buyafarm.com property of the week. So
Okay.
Here's the first question.
Okay, the first question comes from Carl Fritz from Benton, Pennsylvania. Carl says, "Hi, Don and Terry. Love the podcast. Not sure if this question has been asked before or not. All things being equal, if you could buy land in any whitetail state with the goal of managing your land for mature bucks, which one would it be and why? I'd really like to hear your take on best bang for your buck, land values, different states, DNRs, hunting cultures that influence the chances of growing mature bucks in different states, etc. With all your consulting all over the Midwest, I think your perspective on this subject would be a unique one. Thanks, Carl." Well, Carl, it's probably not going to come as too much as a surprise to a lot of the listeners, but my pick for the state in the Midwest that's got a lot going for it would be Ohio. So where does it start? Well, Ohio's got a longer season than just about any state. In fact, the season is still open right now. They got another week left, and I believe it opens in September. So one of the longest seasons out there. But that's not going to help you grow big deer. It just gives you an opportunity to enjoy a longer season. A couple of things Ohio's got going for it. First of all, it's a one buck state. You got a limit of 1 buck. That helps more bucks reach older age classes. Another thing is they've got a very late gun season. I believe their gun season starts it's after Thanksgiving. I know that. I don't know if it's
Correct.
Is it the Monday after Thanksgiving or the Saturday after Thanksgiving? But anyway, it's after Thanksgiving, very late.
Way after.
Yeah, it's after the rut. So those bucks again have a chance to make it to older age classes. I like the fact that Ohio allows you to supplemental feed. I think that's an opportunity for a healthier deer herd. And what I don't like about Ohio is the fact that they allow baiting. And I've said it before, if Ohio would get rid of the baiting during season, they would be hands down the best whitetail state in the whole country. In fact, I think so much of Ohio that in a couple of days, I'm going to look at a property to possibly purchase with a partner here in Ohio. I owned one property that I sold last summer, but this partner and I are buying and developing properties in Ohio. And we're actually going to look at 2 properties here on Sunday afternoon. So, I think enough of it that I'm spending some time here buying properties. Even though we're flipping them, we're going to hunt them. As we own them and as we're developing, we're going to get to hunt those properties for a season or 2 as we're doing the work. So Ohio would be my pick.
I want you to explain a statement that you made there, and that is about the supplemental feeding. And I'm going to put words in your mouth a little bit, and you can tell me I'm wrong if I do. It's not as much about you care whether somebody's hunting over a pile of food or a feeder. It's that empowering that to be legally done across the state, you're getting more younger bucks killed that are going to fall for eating out of a bait pile. So we're not, I don't think you're making the claim that it's right or wrong to hunt over food. It's just what hunting over food leads to as far as the quality and age structure of deer that end up getting shot because of it.
That's a great point, Terry, and I'm glad you brought that up. It's not my place to tell other deer hunters how to go about their deer hunting. I hunt strictly with a bow. I have nothing against a gun hunter. And that's just one example on a long list. My issue with the baiting in Ohio is that it gets a lot of young bucks killed. And if they would eliminate that, there'd be a whole lot more bucks make it to the older age class. And they've got the genetics. The genetics in Ohio are as good as anywhere on the planet. If they could just move some more bucks into the older age classes, they'd have more giants.
One of the other things I think that Carl needs to take into consideration is, Kansas would be a great state to own property in, but being he's a Pennsylvania resident, depending on how you hunt, if you own property in Kansas to hunt on, you're picking a week and taking vacation and going out there and hunting that week. One of the reasons that I like hunting Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois is I can be there in 3 hours. So when you see the conditions in your favor and making sure you're hunting the right wind, the right places, having a place that you can go to that's easy to get to when the weather's right, just like you did in Iowa this year. Even though you weren't successful, you can jump in the truck and run and do it. When properties are 8-12 hours away, man, that's really hard to effectively hunt different weather patterns. You're basically picking your window and hoping for the best.
Yeah, there is a lot of East Coast hunters, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, up and down the East Coast that head to the Midwest every year. And they'll end up in states like Illinois, Kansas, Iowa, Missouri, wherever. And a lot of them drive right through Ohio to get there. And folks, I'm telling you, I live in Illinois, but the next state that I spend the most time in is probably Ohio.
Right.
Every year I do at least 15, 20 properties in Ohio. And if you're driving through Ohio to get to Illinois, you are making a huge mistake.
Well, I think, just to call it out, a lot of the appeal of Illinois, of why somebody would want to go there, is it's a $2 state. So if you're buying property as a non-resident hunter, you can legally kill $2. And there's this logic that I'm amateurizing my cost of the lease or cost of the property over potentially $2. But it says something about a state that lets that happen. And eventually, like we've seen in Illinois, the quality of the deer's gone down because of that. If you're going to invest in something, don't just say, what's the quick reason or quick way I can get, a property to hunt. I think looking at states like Ohio, that's being managed much more effectively with $1 state, late gun season, that's got the potential to kill the giant probably more than the state that allows 2 deer, if that makes sense.
And you know what? The tag in Ohio is very reasonable too.
It's over the counter. There's no lottery.
Right. And it's cheap compared to some other states. It's probably half the price of Illinois. I don't remember what I paid when I hunted Ohio a couple of years ago, but I'm thinking it was around $200 or so. And
Yeah,
Illinois, you're spending almost $500.
I drop right at $1,000 in Illinois for tags and licenses for 2 every year.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, well, let's move on to the buyafarm.com property of the week.
Well, hey, everybody, this is Terry with the buyafarm.com segment of Chasing Giants podcast. I got Wayne Keller on the line with us, and Wayne's back with an awesome property in Missouri this time. Wayne, this is 4 tracks that's going to be up on auction. You want to take a couple minutes and walk us through this property?
Sure. This is a property that's about 24 miles south of Perryville, Missouri, on highway, just off of Highway 51. It's 1,289 acres. It's going to be offered in 4 tracks. It is online right now for open bidding right now. The third, it will become a virtual auction and buyer's choice. So you can bid and pick if you want the whole farm, 1 track, 2, 3, 4, whatever you want.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about each of these tracks. I know there's 4 of them. And you've been on this property numerous times, and you even ran some trail camera pictures. So the people listening to this that are looking for hunting property probably want to know a little bit about that. But this is a working fenced cattle farm, so even the people looking for ag might be interested in the details of all of it. Right.
I'll start out on track 4.
Okay.
And the reason is I had put trail cameras on it about a year ago because I figured it was the better of the hunting properties. It's got a nice little older mobile home on it. It's in good shape, but a lot of it's wooded. It is, I think, a darn good hunting property. It's a pretty one. But I never really thought of the other as being much of a hunting farm until I was showing the property here this fall and had a customer there, and we looked up and there was a big old buck up there again, the tree line, and we were scrambling to get our cameras out to get his picture. And I got one, not very clear, but after that I realized, hey, this is probably a pretty good hunting farm. So I come down a few days later and put trail cameras up on the property. But again, the hunting season was just about over.
Right.
And I know the guy that was hunting it was telling me, he said, yeah, there's one really big one out there. And he said, I've been after him for 2 years. And he said he made it through the season again this year.
All right. Well, that's good. So that's track number 4.
Yeah, well, this one I was just telling you about was up on track number.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You went to the other track. Track 4 is where you started hanging trail cameras.
Yes, right.
That goes back to a lot that Don talks about, is the big bucks go to where no people's at. So that might be why he was over on that other one. Never know.
I tell you what, this farm is so big that the track south of the road, track 1, it's 1.5 miles from one end to the other.
Wow.
And again, the guys that were hunting it said that was some awfully good hunting on that one. The guy that rents the farm hunts it, and his buddies come in out of state and hunts it with him. And then we move up to the north part, and I guess it's 1.5 miles deep also. And you can really get way back off the road and away from everybody back in there, because there's a lot of small fields, wood lines, and some bigger patches of timber, and it's just good deer country.
Yeah, looking at the pictures on here, it lays a lot like Kentucky, rolling hills with little hollers and connecting woods in it. But there's a lot of pictures of cattle on here, so it looks like it's ready to farm and deer hunt. So
right. I mean, I'm not a hunter, and I'm not going to claim to be and tell you that I am. But over the years, I've sold somewhere between 70 and 80,000 acres of land in Illinois and Missouri, and at least 50% of that was hunting properties. So, I mean, I know a decent hunting property when I see it, but again, I think this is a good one, but I don't claim to be an expert either.
Sure. Well, this is a big chunk of land with all 4 tracks in it. It says here on the website it's 1,289 acres approximately. Mm-hmm. But, if you get on this auction, the way you were explaining it, you have the choice. So you're bidding by the acre, and when you win the price per acre, you choose which track you want, and you can take all of it if you want, or certain parts, and whatever's left, they open the bidding back up. So pretty common.
But it's open. It is open for pre-bidding right now.
Okay.
And the track sizes, track 1's 412 acres. 2 is 166 acres. Track 3 is 597 acres. That's a big one.
Yeah.
And then track 4 is the smallest one. It's 112 acres.
Yep. So scroll through over on to, we're featuring properties in Illinois, but this one's in Missouri. What's the proper pronunciation for this county? Is it Bollinger?
Bollinger.
So go to Bollinger County, Missouri, and it's the only track on BioFarm's website for this one. It's an online auction. It closes on March 3rd. Now, if somebody wants to visit this property, can they schedule that with you?
They can schedule that at any time that I'm available, but we do have an open house on Saturday, February the 19th. From 10 till 3, and we prefer to do it at that time, but you can't make it, let me know. I'll work something out.
All right, Wayne. Well, why don't we wrap this up by you leaving your contact information for everybody, and tell them how to get a hold of you if they have questions on this property or any others that you have listed.
Well, my cell phone number it's my office number is 800-357-4020. It does roll to my cell phone. And again, 800-357-4020.
All right. So visit BioFarm either on their Facebook site or at biofarm.com. Wayne, we appreciate you being on the podcast again this week, and look forward to having you next week with a different property, okay?
All righty. Take care. Have a good one.
Thank you.
All right, well, thanks to Wayne Keller and BioFarm for that property. That's an online auction, but huge tract of land in Missouri that's going to be on auction. Got some good-looking deer hunting in there that you can pick different tracks on. So make sure you head out to biofarm.com to check that or other properties out. We appreciate their support on the podcast. So, Don, can we move on to the next question?
Yep, I'm ready.
This is a long one.
This is a long one, and it's from one of my consulting clients. He's probably going to be shocked that I read this, Terry, because he sent me this in an email as well, and I responded to it. And I thought he was being negative towards me, and I didn't respond in the nicest way. I apologize to him later, but I'll answer his questions here on the podcast as well, because there may be some others that are wondering the same things that Ryan has asked. And it comes from Ryan Ellenboss from Zeeland, Michigan. Ryan says, Don, you have been out on a consulting trip to my properties, and I have a few questions for you on your recent podcast. Love what you're doing and religiously listen to you every week and think you are helping many hunters. So I'm going to take these questions one at a time and answer them. So first, he says, you mentioned in your previous podcast that you wouldn't use burning technique on your farms for your habitat. And then this week you said you were planning on burning. I just feel that sometimes you are contradicting yourself and then confuses me on what to do. That's a great point, Ryan. I'm glad you brought it up. So when I talked about not burning, I was actually talking about timber. From what I had seen on a property in Missouri, where part of the property or part of the woodland had been burned and part had not, the part that had not been burnt had a whole lot better deer cover. So burning absolutely has its place. For example, if you got a cedar thicket, you can go in and cut those cedars, let them dry up for a year or two, then come back with fire and burn that up. And you've just created a perfect environment for, a lot of browse species to come on and fill in. I'm not a fan of it in like a hardwood woods, such as an oak woods, but it does have its place. Now, when I talk about burning, I'm talking about burning my switchgrass, my native grasses, and that's totally different than burning a woods. Those grasses need to be burned about every 2 to 3 years in the spring. And actually the fire does three things. First of all, it stimulates those grasses. The year you burn them, they will be taller and thicker than on the years you don't. The second thing it does is it burns up a lot of the weed seed. So you're going to have a few weeds out there with your grasses, and that fire will take care of a lot of the weed seed. And the third thing it does is if you never burned it, it'd be like never mowing your yard. Weeds would come on, and then eventually tree saplings, briars, and things would take over. And eventually after a number of years, your yard would become a woods. Well, in those grass fields, a lot of tree seedlings get started out there from tree seed being blowed out or squirrels burying acorns or whatever. If you burn on a regular basis, you can keep those trees under control because that fire will boil the cambium layer of that tree. That's the layer between the bark and the wood. That's the living layer, if you will, where the nutrients are going back and forth from the roots to the end of the shoots or the leaves or whatever. And by boiling that or burning that cambium layer, it'll kill that tree. So it stimulates the grasses, it burns up weed seed, and it kills tree seedlings, and it gives you a good stand. I compare it to mowing your yard. You wouldn't think of not mowing your yard, it'd turn into a mess. And the same way with these native grasses. So fire does have its place. And you're right, Ryan, I probably didn't explain myself well enough, and it sounded like I was contradicting myself 2 episodes in a row, because the next episode I talked about mowing down my corn because I was going to burn right next to the cornfield and didn't want that fire to get away.
Yeah, we get so used to talking to each other. We understand what each other means, but I get that we need to probably clarify in some cases a little bit better. So I hope that makes sense.
Yep. Ryan goes on, secondly, on your comments on doing consulting work on an aerial, I agree that it is very difficult to come up with a good plan on just an aerial alone. And I imagine these guys that are doing this are also getting other information from the owner to help make their decision and help them. If not, I agree it's a ripoff. But one of my properties that you looked at and gave me a plan for, if you remember, we had a flat tire and had to get that fixed in the freezing cold weather, and it ended up you never did see the whole property. We only rode on about 5 acres of the 160-acre farm, and you said you didn't need to see any more of it and then proceeded to give me a plan only after seeing the aerial. How were you able to do that? I just feel a little taken aback by your comments when that is really what you did for our property and we paid full price. Well, Brian or Ryan, that is not at all the way I remember it. And this is the part that kind of got my feathers ruffled and resulted in my reply to you, which it wasn't that bad, but it was pretty pointed. I remember, I know exactly the farm you're talking about. I remember exactly where the flat tire happened. We seen way more than 5 acres of the farm. That farm also had a lot of open area on it. So it was not like it was 160 acres of woods. There's a lot of ag field. And, I've looked at probably, I'm just going to guess probably 300 to 400 properties for various clients in the past few years. And one thing about it, every single property is unique and every single client is unique. And when you combine those, everything is, each visit is totally different than another. And I think I mentioned earlier, I was on a farm in Kansas this week where we never got out of the truck at all. Not at all. But I could see everything I needed to. And I'm talking things that you absolutely could not see on an aerial, but I could see them from the truck cab. I was on another property in Missouri where it was more wooded, where we had to do some walking. But here's the thing. The first thing that I'm always looking for on any property, the first thing I'm looking for is, where are we going to put the sanctuary? We've got to get the bucks that we want to kill bedded on the property. I mean, that's the number one goal. Most of my clients, I think the number one goal in their head whenever I show up is, I need him to tell me where I need to put my stand so I can kill the big bucks. Well, my goal is totally different. My goal is, we got to get the bucks bedded on that property first. If we get them bedded there, I fully believe that the client's going to get them killed. And that's why the sanctuary is so important. So if I've already determined that, a certain place on the property is going to be the sanctuary, all I need to see is how thick the cover is within that sanctuary. Do we need to enhance that cover? If it's already thick enough, then I don't need to go in there and stomp around. I don't need to go look for rubs and scrapes and trails and whatever, because it's a sanctuary. I don't really care what's in there to a certain degree. Now, I do care that it's thick, good bedding cover. I do care that there's no human intrusions in there. But, if that's where it ends. And I don't need to walk in there and see every single tree. So I hope that explains and answers your question, Ryan. And I think by picking your question, I'm showing all the listeners, every client that I've ever had, that I'm willing to take the heat. If you don't like something you've seen from me, I'll let the whole public hear my reply, because your success is my success. I want you to be successful just as much as you do, because that's what's built my business is the success of my clients. So I do appreciate, Ryan, that you did take the time to email me as well as submit the question. And then the final part to Ryan's submission, he says, the other property you did for me, if you remember, you did several properties for our group in that weekend. We did ride around most, but surely not all of the property. And we only got out of the truck once to walk 50 yards into the woods in one spot. Then I seem to see many pictures of properties you have been on recently, and it seems like you have been walking all of your customers' properties. Why were my 2 properties different? Well, again, Ryan, every property I do is different. Every single one of them. Every client's different. It all depends on what can be seen. Now, I'm going to see what I need to see to put a plan together. And once I've seen it, I've got the plan in my head. I just need to get to a computer and get it on a plan where you can see it. Now, I'm not about to just show up at somebody's place and just go for a ride in their truck and take their money and throw out some plan. I think the success of my clients proves that what I'm putting out there works, and I'm going to see whatever I need to see to get that plan to the client.
I got 1 point to make on this.
Okay.
The last part of Ryan's question, a lot of that's my fault, Ryan, because this guy goes and goes and goes, and one of my biggest challenges with Don is to get him to slow down and document anything. And especially with social media right now, part of getting engagement, part of putting content out for our listeners is a certain type of customer interaction picture. So if you notice what we shared earlier in this, it doesn't mean that he's out walking every square inch of a property, but he's standing in front of a fossil rock. He's standing in front of a giant tree. He's standing in front of a fence. So that's one of the things that I've really challenged Don to do, is document more of these moments that might give you the perception that he's out walking 26 miles a day with some of these clients. I've seen what the man can do in stepping on a property and putting things into perspective. But connecting that to a stranger at a trade show, sitting down and rolling a map out, that's what we're just warning people. If you want to go spend your money for somebody to do that for you, by all means, go ahead. But our point is just to be careful. So I hope that makes a little bit more sense. So you ready to move on to the next one, or you got anything else to say?
Was that the end of Ryan's? I thought there was a little bit more.
Oh, sorry about that. Let me go back. I have already advanced the slide. There you go.
I guess he just had one comment. Thanks for all you do, and hopefully we will continue to kill big bucks with all your help.
Does that mean they're killing big bucks with the plan that you made for them?
Well, that was my question, but the thing of it is, I was just there. I think it was just last winter. So, I mean, I think it's only been a year, maybe 2 years. And there was several, we looked at several farms. There was a group from Michigan that had various properties they owned or leased in Illinois. And I think I was there for 2 days and looked at probably 5 farms. So, I hope they were successful. And I hope if any of my clients are not successful, one of the things that I do that's probably different than any other consultant is when I put a plan together for anyone, I keep a copy of that plan and that marked area on my home computer. So a client could call me 5 years later and say, "Hey, I got a question about tree stand number 7 on my plan." I can pull up his plan. I know exactly what tree stand number 7 is. And
you remember every farm. You're like some of these guys that remember every golf course hole that they've ever played. Somebody can tell you about a farm from 4 years ago, and you know what ridge had the south-facing slope with the bedding below it or something. I don't understand how you remember every single farm.
Well, you know what? I've got a client in Southern Illinois, Kyle Childers. I hope he don't mind me mentioning his name. Kyle is an orthodontist. And I told him one time, I said, I remember every property I've ever been on. I remember them. And he says, you know what? I can believe that because I remember every set of teeth I've ever seen. He says, I can run into one of my patients in Walmart and I can't remember their name, but I remember their teeth. So I guess he related to what I was saying.
All right. So let's move on to question number 3.
The next question comes from Gavin Ollinger from Prophetstown, Illinois. Gavin says, hey there, Don and Terry. My name is Gavin Ollinger from Northwestern Illinois, and I have spent the past 4 years seriously chasing big deer. I have tried to obtain a few more hunting spots each year since it is easy for me to burn out my spots. Every new spot that I get, it seems there is some big buck that I want to target that year. So my question for Don is, how do you target a big mature buck that you have no previous year history with in a new area? I know you have killed a lot of bucks through multiple years of history, but I am wondering if you have had any success on first year properties with new mature bucks. I appreciate all that you guys have done for the sport, and I have learned so much from both of you. God bless and have a wonderful shed season. Well, Gavin, one buck in particular comes to mind. It was my first 200. It was a 214-inch buck that I shot in 2004. I shot it on a property I just got permission for Basically, I got permission for it in about the middle of November. I killed the buck on the second hunt on that property. So what did I do? Well, the first time I went onto that property, I had two choices. And was I going to stomp the whole property and find the best place to hang my stand? Or was I going to hang a stand out on the edge, a good spot, but stay out on the edge and not even go into that cover? Just the first good spot I come to on the edge, hang that stand, hunt it with the wind right. And that was the choice I made. And when I was younger, and that was, what was that, 17, 18 years ago.
Yep.
That was kind of a turning point in my career where I was starting to realize how important freedom of human intrusion was. And if I would have had that situation just a couple years before, I would have probably stomped that whole property looking for the very best tree in the whole woods to hang my stand. And I would have probably bumped that deer out and never killed him. As it was, I hung that stand in the first good spot I come to on an inside corner of a field, a spot that I could observe as well as observe a lot of territory, as well as have a decent chance of shooting that buck I was after. The next time that I came back, the second hunt, was about probably 10 days after my first hunt. The wind was right again for that stand. I slipped in and I got the buck killed. The lessons there can be carried on to any property, any buck. Freedom of human intrusion. You want to hunt and give yourself a chance, but you want to be cautious enough that you're not bumping that deer off of that property. Hunt the edges, always watch the wind. And really, I'm trying to, and even back then, I was trying to put the pieces together thinking that I would kill that buck the next year. But yet sometimes, it happens that way. And that's not the only buck I've killed on new properties and bucks that I had no history with, but that was one of my biggest. So it's one that really comes to mind.
But that's one of the core values that is kind of your Higgins style of hunting. There's a lot of other guys in the industry, and if that works for them, it's fine, but they're going to tell you to go in there, bust him out of his bed, hang a tree stand there for him to come back the next day. You've always stood behind the fact of, I'm going to play it cautious and have more opportunities to keep that buck there over time without bumping him versus blow him out of there and maybe never see him again. So yeah, you can try to hunt these things like a turkey where you're running and gunning all over the place. And for some guys, they might get it done that first time. It might work, but when you're playing money ball for national championships, you take a little bit more conservative approach and try to keep that animal there and have more opportunities to hunt him when the wind's right.
I've got to believe that this whole, I don't know what they call it, run and gun or bump and dump, or I don't know, run and take a dump maybe, but
Tote brown.
Yeah. I've just got to believe that they spook and lose opportunities at more bucks than they ever kill, and by a wide margin. And I'm not saying it never works, because there's a lot of things that'll work once or twice. But I'm playing the odds, and I want that deer, when I figure out where he's at, I want him staying there. I don't want to bump him and then have to go find him again.
Well, and the other thing too, and I don't want to draw this out, but a lot of guys that use that philosophy are hunting strictly public, and the methodology there is, I got to get on that deer and get him killed before somebody else gets in there. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but when people take that mentality and say, I'm going to go back into my sanctuary or a new farm that I just got permission on that nobody else is there, I don't know that strategy really aligns with the property you're managing. I mean, I could see where that makes sense for somebody to say, this is my only chance to kill that buck on public ground. I still wouldn't go about it that way, but I get it. But I think too many people take that approach and say, well, and this isn't a bash to saddle hunters. This isn't a bash to public land hunters. It's just there's a different strategy for that. And I really believe that some of that mentality, carry a decoy with it out in front of you, and try to stock up on a 6.5-year-old world-class whitetail. They see this stuff on TV and then think, well, I'm gonna hunt my lease that way. And I think in that case, you probably, on average, will do more harm than good.
No doubt about it. You'll burn out a property in a hurry.
All right. So that was Gavin's question. We got one more that we want to go over tonight.
Okay, the last one comes from Johnny Flynn from Reedsville, North Carolina. He says, hello, Don and Terry. My question is twofold. One, do you believe we are at the pinnacle of hunting as far as giant bucks are concerned? Or have we passed the best it's going to get, or do you believe it can still improve? I'm going to answer that question before I move on to the second one. Johnny, I think we're probably, it depends on where you're at. My state of Illinois is headed down the toilet. It's been headed down the toilet for about almost 20 years now. And it's about to go off the cliff. It's sad because Illinois once was home to the best deer herd on the planet. Mismanagement is the only culprit. And, but I do think that we've got more and more deer hunters that are wanting to manage for quality. And all it takes to grow a giant buck is a little bit of security. If he can find a safe place to stick his head every day, he's got a chance to make it to maturity. And, that's why I preach the sanctuary on every property, because if you got a sanctuary, you're going to have some bucks live there. Some of those bucks are going to make it old, and some of them old bucks are going to have really nice racks. From a state management perspective, and I'm not just talking about Illinois, I'm talking about any state. The thing that concerns me is the idea that CWD is this boogeyman that's going to destroy our deer herd, and that in order to prevent the spread of CWD, we've got to kill the older age class animals. We don't want those bucks getting old. We want to just hammer the deer herd. So we've got a lot less deer, but also a lot less old deer in particular. And that worries me. So I would not be a bit surprised if we haven't seen the best days as far as growing big deer on a statewide level. Now there's going to be pockets, we can look at, I don't know, Decatur County, Iowa, for example. There's going to be those places where the private landowners have taken the management away from the state and they're handling it on their own. Those kind of situations, they're going to crank out some giants. So I guess it depends on how you look at it. If you're a part of one of those groups and you've tied up a bunch of land and everybody's working together, and you've taken the management away from the state, yeah, you're going to enjoy some fantastic hunting for many years to come. But if you're dependent on the state to manage for better deer, I think those days are over.
And that's every state. I mean, there's money involved, so that puts the priority. We've talked about it on the podcast before. That takes the priority away from the deer herd and it changes it to a revenue stream. And whether you're talking about extended crossbow seasons, whether you're talking about gun seasons in the middle of the rut, all of these things are made to get more hunters involved in the sport. And I don't mean that we're discouraging people to start hunting. We want people to hunt. But the goal in all of those decisions is to try to get as many people spending money on equipment, paying for licenses, and getting them in the woods for longer periods of time. So it's a revenue generation. It's not still get the same amount of people and encourage the sport to the next generations, but limit what people can shoot when they can shoot them, I think, is the biggest problem. And Illinois, I agree with you. I think it started going down 20 years ago, but then it had in certain areas like ours up there, devastating EHD years, and they never adapted it. So what was slowly starting to trickle down, maybe like this, all of a sudden had these big bumps where it fell off, that it still hasn't recovered because the state didn't adapt, their management plan and tags available when, good grief, 70% of the deer herd was dead. So I think that's why those combination of things is why Illinois, I think, is probably on a faster decline than, there's great states out there. So I think that's part of his next question. If you want to move on to that.
Yeah. The second question is, why is Wisconsin not talked about as much as Iowa, Kansas, Ohio, and a few other states? Wisconsin may not be what it used to be. I don't know. I know there has been CWD or EHD there, but Wisconsin has far and away more Boone and Crockett bucks in the record books than any other state. And I have looked at the most recent data I can find. Thanks for the podcast. You can give my shirt to someone else. I already have one. Well, here's the issue that I see with Wisconsin, Johnny. It's Wisconsin does crank out a lot of booners. And when I say booners, I mean net 170-inch deer. Wisconsin does not crank out a lot of 200-inch deer. And that's why it does not get the recognition. It produces a whole lot of really, really good deer, but it doesn't produce the great top-end deer that places like Iowa does. So that's why Wisconsin typically does not get mentioned with those other states.
Yeah, the number of world class, what we're going to call 200-inch deer that and Ohio's produced some mega giants, no doubt about it. But it's Kansas and Iowa do get a lot of the buzz on that just because of where they're at. It's there's still people that's in Wisconsin looking to go to Iowa, and there's a reason for that.
Right. I've got more than one client from Wisconsin that owns land in Iowa that, I've looked at their farms in Iowa, but, a big deer can come anywhere, though. I mean, just look at the giant typical that was just killed in Indiana. Indiana does a terrible job of managing their deer herd, but yet they put out the number 2 typical ever killed. I think the big issue is that most states, politics have become involved in the management of the deer herds or big game herds, really. And they're managing those herds for maximum revenue and not for the best health of the herd or for the best hunting or for the best age structure. It's all about managing for the most income.
Yep. And keeping the auto insurance lobbyist happy.
Yeah.
If people
that's
don't
the politics.
If people do not believe that is a big portion of what your DNR is up against with some of the decisions they make, you have the wool pulled over your eyes. The auto insurance lobbyist is a huge player in what your local state government and DNR is doing with management practices.
And there's a lot of us in different states that like to just hammer away at our DNR. In some cases, states have fantastic biologists whose hands are being tied by politics.
Right.
It's just what Terry was talking about. The legislators say, hey, the legislator just took a payoff from the insurance lobby, and they're going to dictate that, by golly, we're going to kill 10 times more deer than we did last year.
Politicians get payoffs?
Well, how do you think people like Nancy? Now you're going to get me fired up on politics. You know what? I was just thinking today driving down the road, this whole COVID thing, you know what? How does the government, why is the government forcing people to take free shots? Why? Well, I'll tell you why. They're forcing them to take free shots because the drug companies are giving the politicians payoff. The government is paying, there's nothing free. The government is paying for those COVID shots. The government is paying hospitals to diagnose COVID. It's all the drug companies are putting out a stinking vaccine that doesn't even work, and they're just raking the taxpayer over the coals, and the politicians are just stuffing their pockets on a political disease. Rant over.
For everybody,
get me fired up on politics.
For everybody listening on MTech or on the podcast, I have a screwdriver in my hand and I'm poking him.
It worked. Well, what was we talking about? We was talking about We was talking about states managing their deer herd, and somehow I got off on. I was thinking about that COVID garbage today.
Politicians taking payoffs. I would have never guessed it. You almost mentioned. I think Nancy Pelosi names almost came out of your mouth there for a second. So
yeah, it did.
You kind of.
How do you make on her salary? How do you get to become a multi tens of millionaire? And the numbers just don't add up.
Well, how did Obama do it?
Same way. They're all crooked. And I'm not
garbage. We haven't used the word garbage in a while.
It's not just, and here's the thing that really yanks me. It's not just the Democrats. The Democrats are evil. No doubt about it. They're plumb evil. But the Republicans, they can't stick together on anything. Half of them are corrupt. You know, if the Republicans had stood behind Trump, you know, we wouldn't have any of this garbage. But you know why they couldn't? Because half of them are corrupt. Half of them are taking illegal money under the table too. I'm not a Republican, people. I bash the Democrats, but don't think for a minute that I'm a Republican. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to drag myself to the polls next election after what happened last time.
Your blood pressure up a little bit?
No, I'm feeling pretty good, really.
Got that out of your system before you go to bed. You'll sleep good tonight.
Yeah, I'm ready to take a nap.
All right. Well, I think that's enough for episode 102. This is, like I said, we appreciate the support, listening. Hey, if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. It helps create engagement, even if it's just leaving a comment telling what we do good or bad. It doesn't matter. And if you're listening on a podcast platform, make sure you hit that 5-star review if you don't mind. If you want a 1-star review, we get those every once in a while too. But it means a lot that you guys support us and share the word a lot. We're really excited about this Lester's Feet raffle. If you got some ideas or want to donate to something, please reach out. We're giving away a $60,000 truck this year. That's amazing that we've put this thing together and created this platform. It's awesome.
And that's just the beginning. There'll be a whole lot more prizes. And I have no doubt it's going to be way bigger than last year.
So for all those Amish friends that are listening on MTech, our goal is to at least have the auction site and the ability to sell tickets by Shipshewana. So that's my goal. We might not know of all the 30 different additional prizes that are going to be in the raffle, but we know that you guys that come to that show want to participate in this. So we're trying to rush and get stuff done now that we have some work done with the attorney. So our goal is to be able to do that at the Shipshewana show. We'll provide more details as we go. So I don't have anything else, Don. You be safe while you're out traveling in Ohio. There's more snow and ice coming in, I think, tonight here in Kentucky. And we'll circle back with everybody next week.
Yeah. God bless everyone. Have a great week.
Chasing Giants has been brought to you by Osseo Camo, Buy Farm Real Estate Company, 360 Hunting Blinds, Victory Chevrolet, Real World Wildlife Products, Matthews Archery, Novix Tree Stands, Gingerich Tree Farm, WildlifeFarming.com, QuietKat, and Vortex Optics. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week for another episode of Chasing Giants.